Hey Adrian,
How
how
are
are you?
you?
All
Doing
good.
fine here. How about you?
Everything is good here. All good.
Great.
How's
Wh-
the?
Where 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 are you in Portugal? In Lisbon or?
Yes, I'm in Lisbon.
Great. One of my favorite cities.
Yeah, it's a great place. Now it's I don't know, it's we kind of losing the what made Lisbon special, but it's still a nice city to be in.
It is. Whenever we toured with Whitesnake in Europe, I think it was two times that we started in Cascais.
Yeah.
We rehearsed and did a show, and then we moved on. And I always have great memories. It was like a very small hotel in Cascais, and the second time we stayed there with Brian Adams and his band because they just finished the European tour.
Yeah.
So I almost bought a house there, but I was with a girlfriend at the time, and she didn't want to do that. And when the relationship fell apart, I thought, oh man, I should have bought it. It was a small house on the beach. It was amazing.
Well, it's
Brian Adams actually said that he grew up. Maybe you know that he grew up in Cascais or in Lisbon. And he said it's still his favorite place in the world.
yeah, it's still a nice city, and when you go on that Cascais area, all around the coast, it's
Yeah,
it doesn't get much better than that, to be honest, and
I think so too. Yeah,
sitting in a restaurant by the sea eating seafood. it's,
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And so yeah, what you said about Lisbon, it's everywhere. And all the great cities, tourists from all over the world get there and they get drunk and then they make chaos. Like in Barcelona, it's not more fun. It's no fun to go to Barcelona anymore because it's all drunk tourists all over the place. And so
yeah,
it's
the,
it's pity.
the thing for me here, it's more to do with having like Airbnbs.
Yeah,
People are forced to move outside the city because prices of the houses just get way high. So
yeah,
you see these companies just buying apartments and making their Airbnbs. So you kind of lose the people that
yeah.
the city in a way. I know it's part of evolution, it's the way it is, but I grew up in a poor neighborhood, but at the same time, we had a music school, we had newspapers, and when you turned the corner, you had like drug addicts and prostitutes.
Yeah.
So, it was all that mix of things that made it special, for me at least. I'm glad the drugs are out.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, you see like even like the newspapers and everything, they had to move away from where the offices were for many many years because the prices of rents was just too expensive, and now they become Airbnb. So that's, you kind of lose a bit that you know
Character.
that character, exactly. So
Yeah.
but it is what it is, and let's talk about great Vandenberg record scene. I'm loving the records.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I'm loving it. When did you start writing for this album?
Basically, halfway the COVID period, because we were we tried to plan a European tour for the 2020 album, and then of course COVID hit, and everybody thought, oh, it's going to be a couple of months, and then it was a year, and then it was a year and a half, and I thought, oh man, this is gonna last forever. So I thought I should start writing, because by the time this is maybe over, it's time to put out another album. So that's what happened.
Yeah, and so you came with from that writing period of the previous record. You had that kind of momentum going on as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As as you know, as everybody knows, we could not continue working with Ronnie Romero because at the end of the COVID period, as everybody knows, Ronnie likes to do a lot of things. He likes to be in this band and this band and there and there and there. So um, when we finally started planning shows again, Ronnie's agenda and our agenda didn't match anymore. So I decided, I got to look for another singer who is more committed to the band. And fortunately, I ran into Mats. I kind of forgot about how good he was. I remembered him in the 80s in the band Treat, and I remember seeing on YouTube something he did with Ingrid Malmsteen, and I suddenly ran into him on YouTube again, and I thought, oh man, I gotta get in touch with that guy, and he was really happy because he told me in the 80s when he was in his 20s. He had the first two Vandenberg albums, so he knew all the songs, and he was very excited. So I flew to Stockholm, where he lives, and we had immediate contact, and we started working on the songs. It was great.
Yeah, one of the, and I love Ronnie Romero's voice, and yes, he does a lot of things, but one of the things about Matt's voice. And, I want to say this carefully because I don't want to say any bad things about Ronnie Romero's voice because he's great. But Matt's voice has more layers. If you know what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah.
Listen to this record, you can feel his emotion in the voice, and he knows, when a song requires like a more like a, for instance, for the title track, his voice, like when he pushes the bass, so to say, in his voice, you're like, he's someone that, he can go high if he needs to, but then he has that, really bass tone that I enjoy. And, the layers again in his voice makes this record, I think, special in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. He's a very expressive singer, which for me puts him in the league of people like Coverdale and Robert Plant, where those are singers that grab you by the throat when it's about emotions. And like you said, Ronnie is a really, really, really good singer, but you can tell that when I first met him, he said, you have to know that I want to be a session singer, because he wants to do a lot of things. And that's the one thing, as good as Ronnie is, because he is, Mats doesn't want to do a lot of things. He has done a lot of things, but Mats says, when I'm in a band, I want to focus on the band. I want to, put out that emotion that belongs to this kind of band, this kind of music. And he does a lot of, like you said, when he sings low, he's got this gravel in his voice, and it's almost like he's telling a little story.
Yeah.
And then he bursts out in this, and you go, whoa, what happens here? So it's like you said, it's a lot of layers, and that makes it really, really great. And he's one of the few singers to me that I recognize right away. When he sings one line, you can hear his influences. You can hear that he's influenced by Coverdale and by Robert Plant and Dio and all those guys. But at the same time, he has his own identity despite all those influences. You can hear the influences, but he made it his own. And that's quite unusual these days.
Yeah. And, for me, it's about personality. And he has his own personality. Ronnie's tried to almost emulate, in a way, one singer, while Matt, he can be various singers if he wants to. He can do whatever he wants, but he has this, recognizable voice that, you mentioned Dio, but, Freddie Mercury, for instance, was one of those guys, when you hear him sing, recognizable. On the more like metal stuff, Jeff Scott Soto, for instance, that worked with Malmsteen as well, is another guy that when you hear him, it's Jeff Scott Soto, no matter what band is playing. It's Jeff Scott Soto. And
Yeah.
I think Matt is a great addition, and if he's committed to touring and all that, I think it's going to be great. I think I saw him. I can't remember. He was with Moms. I saw, and his voice is just, he can belt it if he wants.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's unusual, he's one of the last. I think Dino Jelusic is really really great, of course.
Yeah,
But there's only a few guys who sing on this level, and it's Dino, and it's Ronnie, and it's Mats. Dino, but out of those, and Jorn, but out of those singers, Mats has got the most his own identity, I think, out of the new generation of Coverdale's, Dios's, and all those influenced by those big guys. Mats is the one that is most recognizable, I think.
yeah, I think so, and very unique, voice and tone to it. That as I was saying, I was listening to the record, when he brings the voice, when the song asks for a certain emotion, he's there to deliver it. And
yeah, exactly.
And that's what makes a song special, because when you're very monotone, so to say, in your voice, and you have no emotion, sometimes it's like a lot of pop bands, and it's not dissing them. It's very fast food kind of music. I understand because of it. But when you want to listen to a singer or a music, in a way, you want to feel something.
Yeah.
And, I'm an old guy. I'm getting old. I love rock and roll, and that emotion that rock and metal brings. It's very hard to get from any other genre of music.
That's exactly in the same words that I tell people when I'm talking about. They go, "What do you like about rock?" Like people are into other stuff, and exactly what you said. I said, if you put on an AC/DC record or whatever record, there's no other music that generates that kind of emotion. And the funny thing is, it's ageless, because if you put on, like for instance, AC/DC, and a kid that's 1.5 year old start bouncing up and down, he already feels that pulse, and there's no other music who does that, and that makes you want to drive your car with 180 kilometers along the coast, open up the window and put the stereo on really loud. That's the kind of music, and that's what rock and roll has been doing ever since the 50s. And metal, and especially the darker metal, is a different emotion that's got more if you to put it basically a more negative vibe. It's more like pissed off, about the world and about everything. But rock, it's totally on its own, and that's probably why an important reason why where rock fans are so loyal.
Yeah,
because they can't get that emotion anywhere else. So whenever Iron Maiden plays or AC/DC plays or whoever, bam, the same crowd goes there and they have a wonderful time. So long live rock and roll, in the words of Bernie Dio.
Yeah, and that's I recently saw Glenn Hughes here in Lisbon. He was playing the 50th anniversary of Burn, and listening to Deep Purple, 50 years of Burn, it still sounds so present.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I keep saying, like, the Made in Japan album from Deep Purple, to this day, it still sounds timeless. You can feel the energy, the danger of rock and roll. Something is about to happen at any moment.
Yeah.
You just feel the tension there. And it's just amazing. You cannot get that anywhere. Obviously you have like Bach, Mozart, they have timeless pieces as well. But that energy, that sense of danger of rock and roll, get it anywhere.
And the funny thing is, when you're in your early 20s, you kind of think and at the time it was, of course, it's young people's music. You could not picture yourself being at a present age, still loving the same kind of thing, and still loving the fact that it's still made by guys that are approaching 80, or like mid 70s, and still make this kind of music because that's what they want to do, and they still deliver that same energy to people who are their age, and people who are not 22 anymore, and at the same time, I run more and more into kids that are in their early 20s, and they discover this kind of music, and they grew up on hip hop artists and DJs and stuff, and suddenly they run into some kind of music that has that bit of danger that you mentioned in it, and excitement, and one moment you're pissed off, and the next time you're taking it up into the sky, and then people actually playing on the spot and really are able to play a guitar, play drums, and a lot of kids have never seen that before. They stand in front of a stage like this. What the fuck is going on over here?
Yeah.
And you see it more and more. It started happening when we started touring with Moon Kings, my former band. Slowly but surely, there were like 17, 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds, kids who came with their dad or their father, but also kids by themselves. And I talked to a few of them, and they said, yeah, I never know this existed, that they didn't know, because it's not like in the 80s when it was on the radio all the time. Yeah. Right now, you have to look for it, Yeah.
And now I think nowadays it can be easier with digital platforms because, of the algorithm. When you listen to a band, it suggests it's something similar. And I think, but, as you said, back in the day, I would read magazines. I remember I discovered bands because I was reading the credits on certain albums where they tell certain other musicians. And I'm like, okay, who is this guy? Who's Tony Iommi? And when I got a Queen record and like Brian May thanked Tony Iommi, I was like, who's Tony Iommi? And then I discovered Black Sabbath. And with Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and that magic of discovering things, it's still very exciting for me, and listening to music.
Yeah, same for me. It's that's probably that's definitely why so many people of our generations are still loving it. We played twice with this lineup, Vandenberg lineup, on the Monsters of Rock cruise in the United States. And that's such a funny thing, because I think the youngest person on that boat is 6,000 people. The youngest person is probably at least 42, 43. And everybody's wearing their Iron Maiden shirt and their Van Halen shirt, and everybody's really excited, and everybody feels like a 16-year-old again. Yeah. And there's like about 30 bands play there, and everywhere on the ship is rock and roll. I mean, after 6 days, you've kind of heard it, because it starts at 10 in the morning and it doesn't stop, So you hear, especially a lot of American 80s bands, and a lot of them I don't really like that much. They were very generic to my ears. But at the same time, as soon as Van Halen comes on, or like Skid Row, or like the more real bands, in my opinion, and not bands that came in the slipstream of the Motley Crues of this world or whatever, it's just really exciting. And all those people over there, they feel 16 or 17 again, and they drink all day, I must say. But by the end of the evening, they're a wreck, and then they go to bed, and the next morning they wake up with a hangover, and they start all over again at 11 o'clock. It's amazing.
And, on this record, he had Bob Marlett, as a producer again. When you work with a producer, what do you look for?
Well, actually, for me, because I produced the early Vandenberg albums myself and the Moon Kings albums as well, I look for somebody who has the same vision of how it should sound, but has an extra pair of ears, because I make my demos very extensively, and they sound like a record basically, because I don't want to fool myself thinking, oh, once I'm in the studio, it's going to be great. Now it has to be great before you get in the studio already. So I like to be very well prepared. And then a producer, it would be nice if he says, well, maybe it would be great to leave out a couple of words over here, or to the drummer, maybe it's good to use the hi-hat over here instead of the ride cymbal, and those little things. And then in the end, you have to agree on the vision, on the sound. And so when I started working with Bob, the first time I talked to him on the phone, he said, he asked me, I said, how do you would like this band to sound? I said, well, I would like this band to sound as if you're walking into a rehearsal of the band, and you have the chance to stand right close to the stage, and it is a really good rehearsal, and you get grabbed by the throat because of the energy and the sound is in your face. And he said, well, that's exactly how I thought the band should sound, because it's all really good musicians, and it needs to have the power of a live show. And that's what I very often miss on studio albums. People keep polishing and polishing and polishing until it's perfect, and then it's technically perfect, and you lose that little bit of danger that we talked about earlier. And that's the hardest thing to get on a studio album, because recording in the studio is not very dangerous. The most dangerous is when you go to the coffee machine and get another cup of coffee. So it's that's something that I always try to capture on a studio album, and it's difficult, but like with this album, I think I got the closest to that with all the guys involved, because they're all great musicians, and everybody wants the same, to make it sound dynamic and in your face and brutal. A little, like you said, it needs to be a little dangerous.
Yeah,
otherwise it's different.
And the thing I enjoy on this album, it's the guitar solos. There is a quite an exquisite taste when you're playing the solos. It's not shredding for the sake of shredding. It seems there's a purpose on the guitar solos. And, I thought this a lot. There's a young generation of guitar players. They are very good. They are very technical sound. But sometimes it's just notes that comes out of the guitar.
Yeah.
And when I was listening to the Vandenberg record, I was like, I need to pick up my guitar again. I still suck, but I want to play guitar.
Right, that's it. That's exactly what. Once again, you hit the nail on the head. First of all, today's players, they're technically usually amazing. You go, holy shit! I didn't know you could play that fast. And at the same time, I go, but what are you trying to say? It to me, it's like when you learn to speak really fast, and you speak faster and faster and faster, and then at some point people are going to say, I hear the sound, but what are you trying to say, So for me, I went even further back than I did before, even though I've always been aware that I'm a melodic player, because those are the players that touch me, whether it's Brian May or Jeff Beck or Hendrix or early Clapton, Paul Kossoff, Leslie West, Michael Schenker, Eddie Van Halen. A lot of people don't realize how melodic Eddie Van Halen was, because he was so fluid with his technique. But most of his solos, you can hum them as well. And when he goes fast, you go blah, 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 but then you go back into in a melody again. And those have always been the ones, to me. So with this record, I intentionally went even slower than I would normally do, because everybody else is playing fast anyway. And to me, I want to try to touch people instead of impress people, because I don't care about impressing people, because that's not what music is supposed to be about for me, and apparently for you too. So for me, I like it to sing. Like if it's a vocalist, you take over from the vocalist, and I try to make a little story within the story. But you should be able to follow the story, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. A lot of players, as much as I admire those players, I go, man, so much practicing has gone into being able to play like that. I really admire it. But very often, I lose interest after like 10 seconds. I go, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's like being an acrobat on the guitar almost. But when I lose interest because it doesn't touch me, that makes me realize that's not what I'm trying to say. So and also I'm old school. I listen to new players, but I still enjoy Jimi Hendrix's solo in The Wind Cries Mary, or Eric Clapton's live solo in Crossroads, or Brian May's solo in Killer Queen, which is one of my all-time favorite solos. It's totally amazing.
Yeah.
It's still amazing. And I remember when I was about 19, I was touring in Germany with a band, a professional band, and I was still a student. And I heard the solo for Killer Queen coming out of one of the other dressing rooms in the TV studio where we were. And I remember thinking, what the fuck is that? So I walked into the dressing room and people were getting dressed over there. Unfortunately, nobody was naked. That would have been scary because it was like an orchestra with elderly men. But the solo for Killer Queen was on, and I asked somebody, who is this? I don't know. So I asked somebody else, and at some point somebody says, oh, this is a band called It's Queen, and I knew that the first two albums were Queen, but I didn't have them, and I still love them when they were raw, more raw. But Killer Queen, man, that solo, holy shit! And I still, every time I hear it, I go, holy shit, Brian May, what a genius!
Yeah, the tone on that guitar solo as well, it's just, yeah, I love Queen. I'm a big fan of Brian May. But you were talking about guitar solos, and I. On a different kind of genre, I remember watching Johnny Winter, for instance.
Oh yeah,
playing, and the Allman Brothers as well.
Yeah,
it's you listen to that guitar playing without shredding. It's just like the melody, the way they harmonize. I could be hours listening those records and those players, because it's beautiful. It's a purpose. It's not, as you said, showing off or trying to impress anyone. There were, it's melody that comes from the heart, and you can feel that. And when I think a new generation, they are very good, but here you need to put a bit more effort here, for us to feel what you're playing.
Yeah, and also what I think is happening, and it's kind of logical, you have indirect influences. Like I know my friend Steve Vai, one of his big influences is Jimi Hendrix, and sometimes you can hear it in his playing when he plays slower. But what a lot of newer generation guys do, they get influenced by somebody who's influenced by somebody who's influenced. They don't go directly to the source.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of them aren't even interested in projecting that emotion. They go, no, I want to impress first, and then maybe later on I'll do some emotion or something.
Yeah.
But if you don't feel what you're playing, you can never project that emotion. I remember, when I heard the Woodstock record for the first time, at that time, Elvin Lee he's the fastest player in the world. And I was really impressed. But I never bought his records. I loved 10 years after. There was a great blues band, and Elvin was a great player, especially if it didn't want to show off. But like his famous song "Going Home," people go, "Wow, that's really fast." I go, "Yeah, it's great." He was a great player, but I never bought a record because at the same time there were players like Peter Green, and there were players like early Clapton with John Mill and the Blues Breakers, where you could really feel their soul, they're pouring out their heart in like Paul Kossoff, one of those guys, note, and they go, wow, it goes, ooh, heavy stuff, and people think heavy has to do with the sound, but I think heavy is at least also to do with emotion. Like Page, everybody thought he was playing through big Marshall amps, but it was not. It was the sheer power of his attack and what he was putting on. He played through little combo amplifiers. I saw it. The first two Vandenberg albums were recorded in Jimmy Page's studios. So when I went out looking for his guitars and his amplifiers, I saw all these little combo amplifiers, and I asked the engineer, "Where are his Marshalls?" He said, "No, he only uses those live. In his studio, he mainly plays a Telecaster on a little combo." And you go, "What?" And then knowing that, if you listen to those early, then you can hear it. But the power of that band, the drummer and the bass player, and the clean, biting tone of his guitar made the guitar sound way bigger than it actually was.
Yeah. And I think, that with technology, everybody with plugins, everybody can get like a sound, but you really cannot beat the analog stuff, the warmth that you have from a proper amplifier. And, I used to play guitar. I still have my Marshall there in the corner, and I want to get rid of it, because someday I will play it again. I'll just
you should.
I should. Anyway, to wrap it up, you probably have more interviews next. Touring plans for Vandenberg.
Yes, I'm dying to go back on the road because we haven't done any touring. I would really, really love to come back to Portugal and actually and Spain. All those countries where I haven't played in such a long time. That was the reason why I stopped working. Why I had this band, Moon Kings, because the singer, my good friend Jan, he couldn't leave his farm. He has a big farming company in Holland. He couldn't be outside of the country. Otherwise, we would have toured, And so I can't wait to get back on the road. It looks like early next year we're going to start touring. I hope to do a couple of festivals last minute where maybe a band kind of cancels or something, because everything is planned so far ahead right now, especially since COVID, that it's going to be very hard to do touring this year. We do a bunch of shows in Holland, we do one in England and something in Germany, but I can't wait to get back on the road, and especially with this band. I feel more confident with this band than I've done in a long time, because Koen and Randy, the bass player and the drummer, and Mats. I mean, I've got a huge smile on my face all the time whenever we play, because I'm really happy playing with this band. So I can't wait to get back.
Cool. All right, Adrian, thank you very much for your time. All the best for Sin, for the Vandenberg record, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we might bring you guys to Portugal to play, and you'll put the smile on our faces as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks, man.
All right, Adrian, have a great day. Hope to see you soon. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.